Hey everyone, and welcome back to another roundup. So, confusion is up and PC game spending is down. A new strategy for DLC has sparked a little bit of backlash. Consoles may have dodged a massive tax bullet, and a whole bunch more. Of course, we make 6 gaming industry news analysis videos per week, so if you'd like to help us out, like for the algorithm, sub and ring that bell. Cheers, and let's get going. First up, we've got a fairly deep story. So, there are new study findings. They were published last week, and they point to a decline in PC game spending, and it could be down to one pretty darn simple thing: consumer confusion. So, NPD analyst Matt Piscatella claimed on Twitter that the great PC distribution platform wars of 2019 did not do consumer spending on PC any favors. And this one is, it's a bit interesting. So, 2019, of course, was the big platform wars, and that's really when it hit the PC, and between the persistent rise of the Epic Games Store, and then what just felt like an influx of company-specific storefronts, a la the Rockstar launcher, yeah, PC gamers' attention was certainly split in more directions than usual. Now, Piscatella agrees that this new market diversity created a sort of incomprehensible mismatch of competition and exclusivity, this is available here, that's available there, and that it generally just prompted apathy amongst the PC gaming community when it actually came to buying new games. He states that priorities of enhancing consumer experience, choice, and minimizing confusion were all de-emphasized in 2019. And I think obviously, when competition takes precedence over user experience, the whole industry suffers. Piscatella also emphasized that this isn't specifically fault of the Epic Games Store, but that the dip in spending is also a product of the broader PC market disruption that we saw last year. If you think about it, right? Ubisoft, they didn't release super major titles in Steam. A few of theirs were duds. Red Dead Redemption 2, that hit Steam really late. I think there's a lot going on there. Now, one person who is very quick to credit the Epic Games Store all the time is, of course, Tim Sweeney, CEO of Epic. And responding to Matt's findings on Twitter, Tim outlined his desire for an analysis of new game ownership from 2018 to 2019, as Tim suspects that it's going to be way up because of the Epic Games Store. And yeah, Tim rightly highlights the massive amount of free games that were, given away on a weekly basis on that store. And yeah, you could be onto something, but there's one thing I want to bring up here. Why the hell would you buy games in 2019? And I'm saying that as somebody who wants to sell you games eventually, right? But the point here is Games Pass. Small amount of money, stupidly large amount of content. Even the Humble Bundles subscription, incredible value for money. Twitch Prime, throwing games at you. The Epic Games Store, just flinging games at you faster than you can even, receive and play the darn things. There is so much value content. We covered this in our big video about the platform wars and about how everyone's just scuffling to get you. And I've got to wonder, are they just daring consumers not to purchase new games? Because if you're getting all these incredible deals, and for many games, if the best way to play a new game is, through some bizarre method of Origin Access, Premier, or Game Pass, are people just not going to purchase straight up games? And I think this is a major issue, the devaluing of content that we're going to face, because right now everyone is just competing with each other to get you in. What happens when that competition is over, when things calm down, and then they've actually got to maintain you and, sort of shift over to a non-growth business model where the focus is on profit and stuff like that? I've got to wonder how that's going to play out. Anyway, moving on, we've got an interesting story. So Paradox have done something that's actually, I think, really interesting. Now, they constantly get raked for the amount of DLC that their games have, EU4, it's $300 or something. So they've responded by trialing an all-included subscription service, albeit it's one that people had to dig around to find because it was a trial. Now, Paradox have since explained that their goal is to lower the barrier of entry for their games, and that the subscription is not going to be replacing purchases, and that people will not have to pay for the same thing twice, and that there will be zero exclusive content for subs. Now, they admitted the test should have been, better communicated to their customers, which I think absolutely is the case and is fair. And I think the backlash to this is interesting. I've got to wonder if it's overblown, because while I'm going to talk a bit more abstractly about business models in this and how I think this is basically quite transparent and isn't really hoodwinking people, it is important to also acknowledge that in a way, the Europa Universalis DLC problem, if you want to play a really good version of the game, that is a problem that Paradox created for themselves through their business model. And, this subscription model is now sort of a way to solve that problem in their business model. But, is it a problem in their business model? As far as they're concerned, it is a really good moneymaker for them. It's kind of hard to know, really. So, Yeah, that is one fairly obvious angle with this, where it's like, if they designed their business model a bit differently, they maybe wouldn't have had this problem. So what do? Do they bundle their DLCs together into like year 1, year 2, year 3 packs? Do they just slash the prices massively, but at the same time, they're still running a business and they're in a niche market where, you know, it's a niche market, right? They're not going to get massive sales. So yeah, it is sort of a problem that they've created for themselves, but also I think there's other important things to talk about with this idea. I don't think they're trying to hoodwink anyone here. With all of those DLC updates, at the end of the day, I mean, there's a few things here. So they release their games. Now, sometimes Paradox release a game and it's really good. Sometimes they release a game and it's Imperator Rome and it's only fixed with paid DLC. People who like, say, the Civilization series will know this quite well, where the base Civ games slightly range in their quality, but then once you add in 1 or 2 DLCs, they're really good. So effectively what ends up happening is the price of entry gets really expensive. Now, the thing is, with a game like Europa Universalis 4, that just has years of consistent development, right, being put into it, which means that there's a lot of DLC left over. So, I mean, in this case, I mean, they're being honest about it, right? If this actually comes out, they say they've not actually landed in pricing or anything like that, like that yet. For me, it's just, if they were being a bit dishonest, being a bit sneaky, locking content behind you, doing things like that, I'd be a bit less okay with. I mean, I'm actually thinking maybe 4 or 5 years forward into the future for what our company's doing. We're, aiming to be a narrative studio. You'll see our first release this year, but eventually, I want to have monthly content updates, right? And if we're going to be having monthly content updates and like we're doing, ongoing series of narrative games and short stories and things like that, does a subscription service and a la carte model end up making sense there? I'm not quite sure. I mean, it seems to make sense for me. For me, though, with all of these business model things, the core is honesty, and it is about what you are willing to provide to your customer in return for what they are giving you. And this is where a lot of the microtransactions and the loot boxes fall really foul for me. And that's even past the psychological stuff. It's the way that the company is using all of these different layers of mystery to fundamentally mask that they're giving you a really bad deal. Whereas here, they're saying there is deal A, which is the a la carte model, there is deal B, you can analyze what they are for yourself, go on ahead. Honestly, I think that is mostly fair. I mean, no, it's straight up fair. So yeah, let me know if you're if you're a core Paradox gamer. I mean, for me, like if I was picking up, I mean, I already own Crusader Kings, but if I was to pick it up fresh, I'd maybe get the DLC or the thing for a month and like see, I could sort of trial every single DLC, work out which ones I don't want, which ones I want. I don't know. I want to hear your opinion on this. I'm not settled in my opinion. I think it's an extremely interesting question though. And I mean, I'll admit a lot of that's because I'm trying to work out what our future plans are for when we, scale up the team and we're releasing more content. Anyway, with that covered, let's move on to our China double whammy. So, a new US-China trade agreement may have actually cleared the skies for the PS5 and Xbox Series X releases. Phase 1 of a new deal will hopefully put the trade war dispute a little bit to bed, at least for the consoles. Now, at one stage, the US were primed to add a 25% import tax to a variety of Chinese products, and this would have included PlayStation and Xbox units. So, basically, the industry has dodged a bullet. Consoles, I mean, they could have been $100 more plus for consumers, or companies would have had to eat an extremely painful loss on each one of those sales. So overall, a good thing for the industry. Moving forward, it just means that the market of the games industry will be operating in a more efficient manner. Next though, I mean, speaking of China, a nice little helping of international censorship. A story posted to Reddit suggests that even in the international version of Total War 3 Kingdoms, you can't rename units if the new names contain certain words. And these certain words are, Xi, as in Xi Jinping, Tibet, Taiwan, or, Dalai, as in the Dalai Lama. Of course, references to China's autocratic leader for life, its occupation of Tibet, its legitimacy dispute with Taiwan, or as Blizzard call it, I think it's Chinese Taipei or something Taipei, and of course, the Dalai Lama, who's currently in a bit of exile. Not the largest story ever, but look, I think it's the right thing to actually boost this one. Look, I've got a platform, I believe in freedom of speech and things like that, very anti-censorship in cases like this, so I'm absolutely going to use this platform to spread stories like this, even if they are a little bit more inconsequential things. I think back to that time when Rainbow Six Siege, when it was prepping for a Chinese release, it was going to end up pushing a worldwide censorship of its maps to remove things like gambling references. Now, thankfully, they didn't do that, but this is a trend we could see more and more and more, and that is why I do think we should be looking out for it. We should be proactively vigilant. At the end of the day, whatever is going to go in the Chinese version, fine, that's for them to decide. But when it comes to the international version, I do not believe that, international people should be, basically sort of dealing with CCP censorship. I mean, come on, it's ridiculous. And I think companies who bow down to that sort of thing are absolute spineless cowards. And yeah, I'm very disappointed in Creative Assembly for not, uncensoring the international version. They absolutely should. And with that covered, let's hop over some very, very contested waters to Japan. So, well, this is a really wild one. You know the way sometimes a game is delayed and maybe you'll try to cancel a pre-order or something like that? Maybe some other people will be okay to wait for the release date. Well, Square Enix are seemingly choosing 4 people, and it's very weird. So, of course, Final Fantasy VII Remake was delayed, and a mail sent to US customers by the Square Enix online store is outlining their bold new plan. It's a bit odd. So, customers in the US who have pre-ordered have to opt into their pre-order by the end of February, or it will be cancelled. And after that, it won't be possible to reinstate the pre-order because of limited stock. But conversely, the European version of the very same email allows users to cancel their pre-order via the link, which, I mean, is a bit more reasonable of a way to do things, but it's quite odd because I mean, it's an A/B test. I don't think it's planned to be an A/B test, but it's essentially, yeah, we've sent out the same thing to both markets, just that the emails do literally the opposite thing. How bizarre. I'm assuming it's just a bit of miscommunication, but a funny little story. And next, a leaked trailer for the upcoming PS5 launch title Godfall has been doing the rounds online, and it's been generating quite a bit of buzz for the visuals and the combat. But this buzz could actually get a little bit louder because the dev, Counterplay Games, have confirmed on Twitter that the footage is, well, actually year-old gameplay from the PC version. So this is actually fairly good news for the game. The trailer was basically put together for an internal presentation, and the game's apparently come on a lot since then. The tweet does advise people to stay tuned for a more detailed look at the PS5 and Epic Games Store exclusive version, which, I mean, no doubt will be interesting if they're really going to be pushing like the graphical envelope and things like that in line with the PS5 release, then, I mean, hey, we could be in for something that's quite pleasing indeed. And then finally, one for, well, me and my fellow Halo fans. So, IGN have released a new video detailing Disintegration, the upcoming shooter from V1 Interactive. Now, V1 are a 30-person studio formed by Halo co-creator Marcus Leto following his 2012 departure from Bungie. Now, the Disintegration team are adamant that while they love Halo, they don't want the game to be Halo, though the gameplay has got like a little bit of a touch of the Chief in it, but I mean, it is different. And the gameplay, I mean, it certainly looks complex. IGN's video is a 60-minute showcase of the game's 5 versus 5 retrieval multiplayer mode. It appears to have a pretty great emphasis on strategy, taking advantage of different builds and classes, and I suppose that's what's interesting to me. I'm not the biggest, I mean, I actually don't really want another class-based game. It's one of the things I like about Halo, and it's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, playing like a bit more competitive Halo on, Halo Infinity whenever it comes out, and like what I enjoyed in Halo Reach when I was playing it over the Christmas break. I kind of just like spawning in with my battle rifle and having a nice simple time. But that said, genres do have to evolve, and if, some of those more modern ideas are being tackled by part of a core creative team that established Halo, then yeah, I mean, those are obviously pioneering minds in the FPS genre, and yeah, I'm pretty darn interested to see what they've got going. So, that's it for today's episode. I really want to know what you think about that Paradox story, and like, less through the lens of just Paradox, I mean just like generically, right? I mean, to me, it seems honest, and that's why it's okay, right? But, I mean, I want to know what you've got to think. I mean, another angle there is that they're sort of selling a solution to a problem that they've solved, and then maybe what they should do is, like, they should just discount their DLC to be at a more reasonable price, and I could certainly understand that point. But I guess, from my perspective, it's like, look, I literally can't talk that much about game stuff right now, because I don't want to, jump the gun on any of our actual announcements and, doing all that stuff properly. But, we're doing our first game, like, big, I mean, I think fairly big for, for our team size and all of that. I'm really excited for that. But like when you're doing a studio, you're always thinking about, well, what's the next game? What are we doing after that? At the end of the day, yes, what is the business model? How do we, pay all of our staff, keep the lights on, all that stuff? And we thinking about, say, Telltale. I mean, I really like the idea of that episodic content coming out, quite consistently. But rather than a Telltale thing, I'd kind of I mean, in my head, what I'd love to do is basically have our own Discworld, right? You know, Discworld is Terry Pratchett's world. You know, there's so many books set in that world. It's a real, like, ongoing universe, essentially. That's kind of the way that was set up, and that's how so many people really grew to love it over time. And one of the things I've been thinking about is, well, you know, what is it like if our team can put out monthly content? And that's sort of a goal that we want to have, to be able to tell ongoing narrative arcs, but also fun short stories set in the world we aim to create. You know, in that case, it's like, what is the business model there? Is it a subscription because it's kind of like an ongoing thing forever? Is it a la carte? But if it is a la carte and you want to do monthly releases, how does that actually work? Are they all mini DLCs? Are there big DLCs for season passes? I don't know. And I suppose a lot of that's why I'm actually going to, you know, mention it to you. I'm interested to see what you think. I mean, that stuff's probably a few years off, but I mean, yeah, if you've made it to this far at the end of the video and you're still listening to me rambling, then, I mean, thank you, and I really would appreciate knowing. It's definitely important to me. So, cheers. Let me know what you thought about today's episode, and with that, I'll see you next time.